What's up top 10 fam, hope you're having an awesome day. I'm your host Ayman Hassan and welcome back to another video. Now I feel like tombs were truly invented to stay shut. Like no one would go to that much effort to enclose something or someone in something so secure and endowed if they wanted it to be opened. Like if they wanted it to be open, they would have just kept the thing in some wooden box without a lid. Truly, like, it's just logic, people. So let's just see when these openings have gone horribly wrong. These are the top 10 cursed tombs that have been opened. Starting us off at number 10 is King Tutankhamun Part 1. Now back in the day, and this was done a lot in ancient Egypt, people would place curses on tombs as a safety measure. This was done because if any of the possessions inside a tomb were disturbed, then the person buried or wrapped up inside wouldn't have had a peaceful afterlife. But that fact clearly didn't stop many Egyptologists, including the Earl of Carnarvon, George Herbert, who funded the group dig in the Valley of the Kings where King Tutankhamun's tomb was found. George and his daughter traveled to Egypt where they were going to be present when the tomb was officially opened by the Department of Antiquities. However, the father-daughter duo, along with an assistant, went into the tomb multiple times, which was just unauthorized. They even made a breach in the corner of the tomb's doorway and looked inside, and this was the first time modern people had stepped foot in the tomb. Journalists reported that the words "death shall come on swift wings to him who disturbs the peace of the king" were inscribed near the door. A few months later, the earl died from an infected mosquito bite. I don't want to say it's karma, but it was karma. Now I know that could be completely unlinked, but a similar lesion was found on the pharaoh's cheek during an autopsy, which is just sus as hell. And to top it all off, all the lights in the earl's house just blacked out the moment he died with zero explanation whatsoever. So it's safe to say death really did come on swift wings, didn't it? But Coming in at number 9 is King Tutankhamun Part 2. Now this tomb is probably the most cursed one of all time, which is why honestly I could make like 9 parts to this tomb, but I won't. But I do think it deserves 2 though, to shed light on how cursed it truly was. Now first we have Sir Bruce Ingham. Howard Carter, one of the archaeologists that found the tomb, gave Bruce a paperweight which looked like a mummified hand wearing a bracelet. On it was the phrase "Cursed be he who moves my body." His house burned down soon after, and after finishing rebuilding it, it was destroyed again by a flood. Then we move on to Hugh Evelyn White. He visited the tomb, and after seeing literally 24 other excavators die, Hugh hung himself and left a suicide note behind. On it, it said, "I have succumbed to a curse which forces me to disappear." And he wrote that in his own blood. And there's like 30 more stories where that came from, so I hope that puts into perspective how much opening King Tutankhamun's tomb screwed everyone over, and rightfully so. I mean, he did warn you guys. That's none of my business. At number 8 we have The Unknown Tomb. Back in 1699, Louis Penisher wrote a book called The Treatise on Embalming, and in the book he told the story of a very precarious Polish man. The man had bought 2 tombs with mummies inside them from Alexandria, hoping to study them for medicinal purposes. Okay, first off, I didn't even know you could just buy mummies and tombs just like that, like surely that isn't legal. Either way, as he was sailing back home with the mummies in tow, he started being haunted by 2 ghosts that magically just appeared on the boat, and of course he knew the ghosts had to be the mummies. He started seeing visions of 2 figures come at him and was losing his grip on reality. The weather at sea was starting to get a lot worse as well, and so freaking out he threw the mummies overboard, and peace was very quickly restored. Filling our number 7 slot is Seth I. Now back in 1833, German archaeologist Carl Richard Lepsius went to various lectures on the decipherment of the Egyptian language and then traveled to Egypt. There he undertook a dig in the Valley of the Kings and found a complete undiscovered tomb, which was rare since most of them had been found by then. The tomb belonged to Seth I, and Carl took a full-on entire pillar from the tomb back to Berlin with him. As soon as he got back though, he became sick almost immediately and was rushed to the hospital, where he found out the right side of his body was fully paralyzed. If that wasn't bad enough, he was diagnosed with cancer not long after, and it's believed that the paralysis came to be because of him stealing the pillar from the tomb. Now I love how people think they can just take whatever the hell they want from these tombs and nothing is gonna happen to them. Like, it doesn't work like that, buddy. Something will happen to you. You take a pillar, you get paralyzed. It's a dog-eat-dog world, people. Savage. Savagery, snakery, just push it all away. Now at number 6 is the annual occurrence. Renowned Egyptologist Zahi Hawass was doing some excavation at the Qom Abu Billo site, which is the location of various tombs. He was transporting some artifacts from these tombs to a different location, and that was the day things changed for him forever. On that same day as he was transporting the items, his aunt died. Then a year later on the same day, his uncle died. The following year on the same day again, his cousin died. So there had now been 3 deaths 3 years in a row on the same frickin' day. Coincidence? Most definitely not. Newspapers around Egypt pointed to the curse of the pharaohs for being behind the deaths, whereas Hawes himself said the truth is that there is no curse of the pharaohs. Ooh, unpopular opinion maybe perhaps. Speculation. Coming in at number 5 is the curious case of George. So Egyptology professor George Reisner was quite a big name back in the 1930s and 40s because he discovered the tomb of Khufu's mother back in the day and basically made media history when he delivered a worldwide broadcast from inside the king's chamber. That's a flex if I ever saw one. Like, I thought I flexed, that is a flex. Either way, by the spring of 1942, Reisner was working inside the pyramid when he suddenly collapsed. Now the thing about George was that he was almost entirely blind, yet he was extremely vocal and articulate and hadn't mentioned anything about feeling sick that day. His team had to drag his body out of the pyramid paralyzed, and he died very shortly after. No one knows why or how he died, how he became paralyzed, but by now I think it's safe to say the curse of the pharaohs got him. Got him. Got him. At number 4 is the Tomb Raider, and no, I'm not talking about Lara Croft, although I really wish I was. So back in 2004, a German man was visiting the Valley of the Kings in Egypt and stole a relic from King Tutankhamun's tomb. I mean, international law would call it stealing. He, on the other hand, called it a souvenir, so I mean, that's none of my business. Stealing. Either way, when he got back to Germany, the man came down with a horrible fever and fatigue despite being 100% healthy days prior. The fever turned into paralysis and soon death. The man's stepson was convinced that the relic his dad had stolen was cursed and returned it to Egypt's Supreme Council for Antiquities, hoping that that would allow his dad's soul to rest in peace. I mean, honestly, if you're disrespectful enough to steal an artifact from a grave, then does your soul really deserve to rest in peace? Didn't think so. Next. Filling our number 3 slot is CASIMIR IV JAGIELLON, and I know there are many pronunciations of his name, the Lithuanian version, the Polish version, like there's many, so don't come for me, honestly. Now Casimir had a bunch of royal titles, but the main ones were the Grand Duke of Lithuania and the King of Poland, both of which he upheld from the 1440s till his death. He died in 1492 at the age of 64, and his remains were put inside a tomb and sealed inside the chapel of the Wawel Castle. Fast forward nearly 500 years later, a team of 12 archaeologists ventured to Poland to open his tomb, and when they did, they found his rotten corpse in there, which sounds pretty anticlimactic, like what else were they expecting to find there? Either way, days after they opened it, 4 of the 12 archaeologists died, and 2 years later only 2 people from the team were still alive. One of the survivors was a microbiologist who found fungi in the royal insignia taken from the tomb, and this fungi specifically produces aflatoxins that are fatal if they touch your skin or if you breathe them in. So it wasn't the tomb's curse specifically that killed all these people, but I mean it was the curse of the fungi, and arguably that is more scary, you guys. Now at number 2 is the curse of Tamerlane. Now Timur or Tamerlane was a Turco-Mongol Persianate conqueror and the founder of the Timurid Empire, which is basically modern day Iran. Big dude with big dick energy, honestly, gotta give it to him. Either way, back in June of 1941, a group of Soviet anthropologists went to his burial tomb in Uzbekistan hoping to exhume his body. When they finally got there and opened the doors, they found a chilling message inscribed on his tomb. "When I rise from the dead, the world shall tremble," and it also said, "Whomsoever opens my tomb shall unleash an invader more terrible than I." And boy, oh boy, was he not wrong. 3 days after his tomb was opened, Hitler invaded the Soviet Union, and so the whole invader more terrible than I was most definitely true. But then get this, after hearing about the situation, Stalin ordered the body to be reburied, and then days after that, Soviet forces won against German forces when they liberated Stalingrad. So I feel like Tamerlane's curse was very much alive when all this was going on. Russia and Germany were like, no, you bury him, no, you bring him back out, no, you bury him, no, you bring him back out. This guy's body was what decided the fate of World War II, I just wanted to let you know. It wasn't Hitler, it wasn't the Axis Allies powers, it was none of that. And finally, at number 1 is the God of Death. Ominous, I know. So back in 1971, which is like semi-recent considering the other dates on this list, a group of men led by Egyptologist Walter Bryan Emery were doing a dig in Saqqara. The group came upon a hidden tomb in a deep hole, and inside it was the statue of Osiris, the god of death. The statue wasn't even that big, it was like less than 20 centimeters long max, and the worker quickly gave it to Emery, who took it to his dig house. He then went to take a shower, but a few minutes later his assistant heard some strange moaning noise coming from the house. He went in and knocked on the bathroom door but got no answer. Getting slightly worried now, he went inside to find Emery clutching the basin for dear life, unable to move with a horrid look of trauma on his face. His assistant had to physically grab him by the shoulders, drag him to the couch, and then call an ambulance. The diagnosis was pretty clear. Emery was completely paralyzed from the right side and became unable to speak, and sadly died the next day out of literally nowhere. His team and wife believe the tomb was cursed, whereas I believe if you're finding the god of death hidden somewhere deep down in the desert, you can't possibly be surprised that you yourself was met with death very quickly later. Just saying, it's logic. 1 + 1 = death. Osiris equals death. Hello. And that's it for today's video, guys. I honestly feel like I'm in charge of all the archaeological type videos on this channel, and I'm not even mad about it. Hopefully you guys learn not to mess with the Egyptians, because they know how to curse the hell out of you. Remember that. As always, I'm your host Eamon Hassan, and I'll catch you in the next one. Bye!